Hey scholars, welcome back to our reading of The Tale of Despereaux. Here's a recap. Mig was given the job of bringing down Gregory's food because she wasn't good at very much anything else. She is not afraid at all when she goes to the dungeon or into the darkness, and she meets Gregory while she's down there. She also meets Roscuro, who has a plan for her to become a princess. So let's find out what his plan is. We're on chapter 34. Kill them, even if they're already dead. Reader, you did not forget about our small mouse, did you? Back to the light. That was what Gregory whispered to him when he wrapped Despereaux into his napkin and placed him on the tray. And then Mig, after her conversation with Roscuro, carried the tray into the kitchen, and when she saw the cook, she shouted, "It's me, Miggery So! Back from the deep downs." "Ah, lovely," said Cook. "Ain't we all relieved?" Mig put the tray on the counter. "Here, here," said Cook. "Your duties ain't done. You must clear it." "How's that?" shouted Mig. "You must clear the tray," shouted Cook. She reached over and took hold of the napkin and gave it a good shake, and Despereaux tumbled out of the napkin and landed right directly, plop, in a measuring cup full of oil. "Ah!" said Cook. "A mouse in my kitchen, in my cooking oil, in my measuring cup. You, Mig, kill him directly." Meg bent her head and looked at the mouse slowly, sinking into the bottom of the glass cup. "Poor little missy," she said, and she stuck her hand into the oil and pulled him out by his tail. Despereaux, gasping and coughing and blinking at bright light, could have wept with joy at his rescue, but he was not given time to cry. "Kill him!" shouted Cook. "Gore," said Mig. "All right." Holding Despereaux by the tail, she went to get the kitchen knife. But the mouse tail, covered as it was in oil, was slick and difficult to hold on to, and Mig, in reaching for the knife, loosened her grip, and Despereaux fell to the floor. Mig looked down at the little bundle of brown fur. "Gore," she said. "That killed him for sure." "Kill him if he's already dead," shouted Cook. "That's my philosophy with mice. If they're alive, kill them. If they're dead, kill them. And that way you can be certain of having yourself a dead mouse, which is the only kind of mouse to have." "That's some good sophisy. That is, kill them, even if they're already dead." "Hurry, you cauliflower-eared fool," shouted the cook. "Hurry!" Despereaux lifted his head from the floor. The afternoon sun was shining through the large kitchen window. He had time to think how miraculous the light was, and then it disappeared and Meg's face loomed into view. She studied him, breathing through her mouth. "Little missy," she said, "ain't you gonna skedaddle?" Despereaux looked for a long moment into Meg's small, concerned eyes, and then there came a blinding flash and the sound of metal moving through air as Meg brought down the kitchen knife. Down, down, down. Despereaux felt a very intense pain in his hindquarters. He leapt up into action. Reader, he scurried. He scurried like a professional mouse. He zigzagged to the left. He zagged to the right. "Gore," shouted Meg. "Missed him." "Ain't that a surprise?" the cook said, just as Despereaux scurried under a crack in the pantry floor. "I got the little missy's tail, though," said Meg. She bent over and picked up Despereaux's tail and held it up, proudly displaying it to Cook. "So," shouted Cook, "what good will that do us when the rest of him has disappeared into the pantry?" "I don't know," said Meg, and she braced herself as Cook advanced upon her, intending to give her a good clap to the ear. "I don't know." Here's a picture of Despereaux's tail being chopped off. So Miggery So comes back up from the dungeon, and Despereaux has fallen out of the napkin that Gregory put on the plate. He gets away, but the chef says, "Kill them even if they're already dead." So people don't like mice, right? Especially cooks, and especially in the kitchen. And Meg only got his tail. Chapter 35. The Knight in Shining Armor. Despereaux was pondering the reverse of that question. He was wondering not what he would do with his tail, but what he would do without it. He was sitting on a bag of flour high atop a shelf in the pantry, crying for what he had lost. The pain in his hindquarters was intense, and he wept because of it. But he also cried because he was happy. He was out of the dungeon. He had been recalled to life. His rescue had just happened in time for him to save the Princess P from the terrible fate that the rat had planned for her. So Despereaux wept with joy and with pain and with gratitude. He wept with exhaustion and despair and hope. He wept with all the emotions a young small mouse who has been sent to his death and then been delivered from it in time to save his beloved can feel. Reader, the mouse wept. And then he lay down on the sack of flour and slept. Outside the castle the sun set, and the stars came out one by one, and then they disappeared and gave way to the rising sun, and still Despereaux slept. And while he slept, he dreamt. He dreamt of the stained glass windows and the dark of the dungeon. In Despereaux's dream, the light came to life, brilliant and glorious, in the shape of a knight swinging a sword. The night fought the dark. And the dark took many shapes. First the dark was his mother, uttering phrases in French, and then the dark became his father, beating the drum. The dark was Furlough, wearing a black hood and shaking his head no. And the dark became a huge rat, smiling, that was evil and sharp. The dark, cried Despereaux, turning his head to the left. The light, he murmured, turning his head to the right. He called out to the night. He shouted, "Who are you? Will you save me?" But the knight did not answer him. "Tell me who you are," Despereaux shouted. The knight stopped swinging his sword. He looked at Despereaux. "You know me," he said. "No," said Despereaux, "I don't." "You do," said the knight. He slowly took all the armor off his head and revealed nothing, no one. The suit of armor was empty. "No, oh no," said Despereaux. "There is no knight in shining armor. It's all just make-believe, like Happily Ever After." And in his sleep, reader, the mouse began to cry. So Despereaux right now is having a dream that there is no knight in shining armor like he once thought. So that kind of sounds more like a nightmare. Okay, chapter 36. What Mig Carried. And while the mouse slept, Roscuro put his terrible plan into effect. Would you like to hear, reader, how it all unfolded? The story is not a pretty one, and there is violence in it, and cruelty. But stories that are not pretty have a certain value too, I suppose. Everything, as you well know, having lived in this world long enough yourself to have figured out a thing or two, cannot always be sweetness and light. Listen, this is how it happened. First, the rat finished, once and for all, the job he had started long ago. He chewed through Gregory's rope all the way through it, so that the jailer became lost in the maze of the dungeon. Late at night, when the castle was dark, the servant girl, Miggery-So, climbed the stairs to the princess's room. In her hand she carried a candle, and in the pockets of her apron were two very ominous things. In the right pocket, hidden in case they should encounter anyone on the stairs, was a rat, with a spoon on his head and a cloak of red around his shoulders. In the left pocket was a kitchen knife, the same knife that Miggery-So had used to cut off the tail of a certain mouse. These were the things, a rat and a knife and a candle, that Mig carried with her as she climbed up the stairs. "Gore," she shouted to the rat, "it's dark, ain't it?" Yes, whispered Roscuro from her pocket. "It's quite dark, my dear." "When I'm a princess," began Mig. "Shh," said Roscuro. "May I suggest that you keep your glorious plans for the future to yourself? And may I further suggest that you keep your voice down to a whisper? We are, after all, on a covert mission. Do you know how to whisper, my dear?" "I do," shouted Mig. "Then please," said Roscuro, "please institute this knowledge immediately." "Gore," whispered Meg. "All right." "Thank you," said Roscuro. "Do I need to review with you our plan of action again?" "I got it all straight right here in my head," whispered Mig, and she tapped the side of her head with one finger. "How comforting," said Roscuro. "Perhaps, my dear, we should go over it again one more time, just to be sure." "Well," said Mig, "we go into the princess's room, and she will be sleeping and snoozing and snoring. I will wake her up and show her the knife and say, 'If you does not want to get hurt, princess, you must come with me.'" "And you will not hurt her," said Roscuro. "No, I won't. Because I want her to live so that she can be my lady in waiting when I become the princess." "Exactly," said Roscuro. "That will be her divine comeuppance." "Gore," whispered Meg. "Yes, her divine comeuppance." Meg had, of course, no idea what the phrase divine comeuppance meant, but she liked very much the sound of it. And she repeated it over and over to herself until Roscuro said, "And then?" "And then," continued Meg, "I get to tell her to get out of her princess bed and come with me on a little journey." "Ha," said Roscuro, "a little journey. That is right. Ha, I love the understatement of that phrase, a little journey. Oh, it will be a little journey. Indeed it will." "And then," said Meg, who was now coming to her favorite part of the plan, "we take her deep downs and we give her some long lessons in how to be a serving girl, and we gives me some short lessons on how to be a princess. And when we is all done studying up, we switch places. I get to be the princess and she gets to be the maid." Reader, this is the very plan that Roscuro presented to Meg when he first met her. It was, of course, a ridiculous plan. No one would ever, not for one blind minute, mistake Meg for the princess or the princess for Meg. But Megariso, as I pointed out to you before, was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And reader, too, she wanted so desperately to become a princess. She wanted, oh, how she wanted. And it was because of this terrible wanting that she was able to believe in Roscuro's plan with every ounce of her heart. The rat's real plan was, in a way, more simple and more terrible. He intended to take the princess to the deepest, darkest part of the dungeon. He intended to have Meg put chains on the princess's hand and her feet, and he intended to keep the glittering, glowing, laughing princess there in the dark forever. Okay, so that was 3 chapters. So we've heard Roscuro's plan and how he and Meg are going to, how Meg is going to become a princess and how Roscuro is going to get revenge on the princess. So, the questions I have for you are, what is Roscuro's real plan? So the plan that he tells Megary, and what is the plan that he really has? And the second question is, what is Despereaux doubting? So we know that Despereaux was reading these books, and he thought he was going to be the knight in the shining armor, but what is he upset about, and what does he have this nightmare about? Okay, the questions are in the comments below. Make sure you're talking about this with somebody who's reading it with you, or you are writing these down and sending them to your teacher. So pause the video now, and then we'll go over them. Okay, so the first question is, what is Roscuro's real plan? Okay, so Megariso thinks that she and the princess are going to switch places, that the princess is going to become the maid, and Meg is going to become the princess. But we know that the author tells us this is a ridiculous plan, because no one would ever think that Megariso looked like the princess and the princess looked like a servant. So Roscuro's real plan is that the princess is going to stay in the dungeon forever, which sounds pretty terrible. And then the second question was, what is Despereaux so upset about, and what is he doubting? So he has this nightmare, and he's doubting that there is a knight in shining armor. That maybe all of these things that he was thinking could come true might not come true. And remember, he's having these nightmares and thinking about his mom and his dad. So we're going to see if Despereaux gets out of that cupboard after his tail was chopped off in the next section of the book. Alright, I hope you enjoyed today's reading. I hope you're enjoying the book so far. I'll show you, we have this much left, so we read a lot. Okay, I'll see you next time.